Hey everyone, this is Empowering Astrology, and this is your weekly live look at the astrology. This is August 24th to 30th, 2020. And just to introduce myself, especially to those who are new to this broadcast, this weekly look, whether you are on Spotify, on IGTV, on YouTube, or even here on Facebook. So my name is Katie Sweetman, and I'm an astrologer and psychic medium here in Brooklyn, New York. And I've been sort of creating things under the name Empowering Astrology for the last, hard to believe, 10 years. It'll be 11 years in January. It's when I kind of cooked up this idea, but perhaps this idea is a much older idea because it's empowering astrology. Because when I was learning astrology as a teenager and I was reading about Mars square Saturn or Mercury this or Neptune that, it was all a bit scary. So what I realized over time is that astrology is this wonderful tool for consciousness, for you to discover yourself, for you to be hopefully a better human, have better relationships. So I look at the astrology every day. If you follow me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, I do horoscopes. I do this live broadcast all so that we can be more present with what is going on. Because I know a lot of you are like, what is going on? Why am I feeling all the things? Why is 2020 such a banana year? What's going to go on in 2021? Why is everything so difficult right now? So we just are in a time when everything has to change. The astrology is revealing this. It's been revealing this for quite some time, and we need to use, or just my personal opinion, to use astrology as a tool to help us transform, because 2020 is asking us to step up in our personal lives and step up and be our true selves. So that said, I just want to kind of go through a couple of housekeeping things, because I always get this question and I always avoid it because it kind of makes me groan a little bit as an astrologer, but I always get asked about the 13th sign, so I couldn't avoid it. A couple of clients was like, wait, what 13th sign? The signs changed. No, this is just your periodic reminder that the zodiac signs have not changed. There are still 12. There is no 13th. This is something that astronomers, and I love science, don't get me wrong, but this is something that astronomers kind of bring into the conversation, because now there is a constellation of the zodiac that touches the ecliptic that perhaps 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago was not. So don't worry, your signs have not changed. Astrology is a symbolic system that fixes itself to Aries being in alignment with the spring equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere. That was the case 2,000 plus years ago when astrology, I don't want to say created, because astrology is probably a download at some point. It's older than 2,000 years old. But over time, things have shifted because the Earth rotates. It rotates around the sun. The sun rotates around the galaxy. The stars aren't quite in alignment where they were 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, something called precession. So this is why we're in the age of Aquarius right now, because Aquarius rises at the spring equinox, not Aries like it was way back when. So housekeeping thing number one. Another thing that keeps coming up, and I've articulated it here a couple of times, but maybe it's just kind of becoming more and more succinct, is that astrology is just 50%. You are the other 50%. I said this to clients I had on Friday. I was like, astrology is just 50%. So if you come here weekly, which I know you do, thank you very much. I see some familiar faces, Judy, Natalia, Sue, Christina, Laura, Allison. You come here every week to listen about the astrology, hopefully to hang out with me. Hi, thanks. But do know, I know, and I did this myself once upon a time. It's like, when are things going to get better? When is the astrology going to say things are going to get easier? When am I going to get a boyfriend? When am I going to get a partner? When is all the things that, these are the questions I get as an astrologer. You are 50%. So this is why it's empowering astrology. How do you use even the most difficult astrology to make something amazing happen? we were having this last week. This was, I think, something that I brought up in last week's look at the astrology. It's like we were having something. I can't even remember at this point. I think it was a full moon, and then we had 2 weeks before that, we had a new moon with some tough aspects. And it was like, how do we use, I think it was Mars square Pluto. Mars square Pluto, this is a week or so ago. This force, this energy, something that wants us to really use this power, or can use this power, as a force of transformation. And I was having, using it for my own personal transformation work, healing and release. And, it's like, wow, this is, you really, sometimes you need the rocket fuel of something like Mars square Pluto or Mars square Saturn, which we have today, to really push something or to achieve something or to solidify something that you've needed to do up until this point. So this is why I want you all to maybe shift your thinking a little bit about how you see the planets as something that you can work with. Now, there's certain things that we can't control the planets. We cannot, Pluto is not the boss of, or we're not the boss of Pluto. Pluto is the boss of us. But understand that there are evolutions and transformations that need to happen. But we have to grow. We have to evolve. And astrology just tells us what time it is. We insert ourselves with the time. We have free will. We show up in a certain way. And so when I tell people astrology is just 50%, you're the other 50%. Now, ideally, because in that 50% of you are like subsections. Your conscious, your unconscious, your fears, your past, your trauma, your past lives. There's a lot of different subsections. And if you know yourself on a deep level, great, then you're going to interface with the astrology in a different way. Not a better way, just different. Maybe more productive, more creative. If you are afraid to be yourself, for example, you're going to interface with the astrology in a much different way. It's going to shake you more, or kind of bring something from your blind spot so that you can see it, so you can transform it, so you can heal it. So this is why I just want to make sure we're both on the same page, because there's a lot going on this year. Certainly a lot has already happened this year. How do you use this really intense astrology to work with the 50%? That's why I tell people I'm a holistic astrologer, because if you come to me in a client consultation, I'll tell you your astrology, but I gotta get to know, and I gotta look under the hood of the other 50% to see what you are aware of, what you are not aware of, what is sort of deriving things. I was talking with a client of mine today who I've been working with for the past couple of years, and we were doing some shadow work. What's shadow work? Well, shadow work is when we suddenly realize there's a part of us that's actively working against us. So this is why astrology can show us moments where we kind of be like, pull back the curtain, like, oh, I see how I'm self-sabotaging. I see how this fear part of myself, or this childhood part of myself, is the one that's making the decisions. I'm not making the decisions. Another part of myself, that's shadow work. Anyway, I digress. I want to make sure that we're both on the same page as we look at the astrology of August 24th through 30th, 2020. So that was all a big run-up to talk about today's Mars square Saturn. So Mars square Saturn in traditional astrology is a pretty intense astrology. It provokes, it sort of shows us the karma of our actions. And traditional astrology, they call it a malefic. Now, for a good reason, because Mars and Saturn, they make things happen. But I was born with Mars square Saturn, and I remember when I was a teenager in the library, I remember those, and this is pre-internet, and I was looking up my astrology chart, because this, again, pre-internet, pre-apps, you guys have it so easy, and I'm sure if you're older watching this live, you're probably like, well, there was no computers back then, we had to do it by hand, and thank God I don't have to learn how to calculate charts by hand. I heard it would take like a half an hour to chart an astrology chart, so you guys have it so easy. But I looked up my chart, and I have Mars square Saturn. So you read these very traditional definitions about Mars square Saturn. And you imagine being like 14, 15, and you read like, God, oh my God, you have Mars square Saturn, you try Mercury square Saturn. These are terrible aspects. Well, this is the thing, they're not. They're just, there's something that you have to work with, you have to grow with, you have to evolve with, and you have to learn to master. So today, as we step into this week, and the exact, as I record this, the exact square is already passed. It was 2:19 p.m. New York time, so a bit later in Europe, or the next day in Australia and New Zealand. But you have to master right now your action. So Mars is in Aries right now. It's been in Aries since the end of June of this year. It won't leave Aries until January 6th, 2021. That is a long time for Mars to be in one sign, because Mars on September 9th is going to turn retrograde. It's going to be retrograde until November 13th. So right now, made a square to Jupiter on August 4th, I believe, and then it made a square to Pluto on August 13th, and now it's making a square to Saturn. It's sort of like boom, 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 these planets in Capricorn. That tells me as an astrologer that we all have to get really real. Capricorn, it is a very real sign. It talks about manifestation, goals, responsibilities, putting our lives into order and balance and structure. And Mars is saying, like, we have to take action, we have to do something, but we have to make sure things in our lives have balance and structure right now. So when I posted today's update for the astrology on Facebook and Instagram, I mentioned, it's like, what does Saturn want? What does Saturn want as a planet? Now, there's two sides to Saturn. There's the not so helpful, planet that says, no, you can't do that. You feel like you're hitting a hard wall. You feel like you've sort of hit a boundary with somebody. Somebody has, this is like the cop, the version of Saturn, but then there's the other version of Saturn. We have to sort of work with both sides. So Saturn wants equity, balance. It wants things to be grounded and structured, and there's accountability, and so if you're running into something and you haven't done it right, if you're taking action, if you're using your willpower in a way, Mars and Aries, that doesn't meet Saturn's requirements or Saturn's needs, there's gonna be friction. So if you all feel that life's a bit tense at the moment, and I've been hearing this from a couple clients, from friends, they're just like, what's going on? I'm like, Mars square Saturn. You have to get your life in order. So there's a particular part of your life that has needed some order and structure and work for the past couple of years. And I've talked about this in previous lives. I'll just do a very quick go around the zodiac so you can remember what part of your life needs extra attention right now. Aries, career, responsibilities, direction. Taurus, it's about how you see the world, your faith. What do you believe in? Higher education, perhaps even travel. Gemini, this is about the deepest parts of yourself. By the way, I've been having a lot of Gemini and Gemini rising clients right now, because you're having to do a lot of deep emotional work and to sort of wrap up that chapter by the end of the year. So you might be feeling a little bit heavy right now. So you need emotional structure. You need emotional support right now. Cancer, this is about relationships, other people, how you connect, socialize, interact, negotiate, compromise. Leo, this is about your health, how you take care of your body, how do you work, the foods that you eat, nutrition, habits, rituals, getting your life sort of in that very kind of nice and ordered, streamlined way. That needs your attention. Virgo, this is about you in a way, sort of how do you express who you are? How do you take yourself and your talents seriously? Side note, it could also be about pregnancy and children for those for whom that is relevant right now. Libra is about home and family, roots and foundation, really putting down a strong foundation. Side note, Libra, you've had to do like a lot of really deep transformation work the past couple of years, if not the past 10, 12 years. That's another story for another time. Scorpio, voice, communication, thinking, writing, learning, choices. I'm a Scorpio, by the way. Thank you for listening to me. Sagittarius, this is about money, income, what you value, how you value yourself, how you spend money, how you accumulate the resources that you need in order to feel safe and secure. It's a very kind of material time in your life, and I mean that in the best possible way. Capricorn, this is about you really stepping up in your life to the next level, meaning getting your capital S stuff together. I know you're a Capricorn, of all the signs, you probably do have your stuff together, but being a Capricorn and having Saturn in Capricorn means there's a higher bar for you right now. Aquarius, so this is the part where you are letting go of probably a 30-year cycle, so a lot of stuff, a lot of detritus, a lot of baggage. This is about spiritual connection. That's where you're doing a lot of the work right now. Pisces, friends, community, social network, goals, looking ahead, the future. So these are the areas, all the 12 signs that need your focus right now. Meanwhile, you have Mars in Aries, and just to spare myself going around the zodiac again, go and read, it's in the show notes, Mars and Aries, sign by sign. You can see what part of your life is heating up. What part of your life is going to heat up and have a lot of action, Mars, until January. So there's two parts of your life that are possibly having a bit of friction. You are running into Saturn. Saturn is the gatekeeper. Saturn is the accountant. It's kind of checking the receipts of your life. So if this resonates at all, this is why I'm sharing this, because obviously we're all different people. We're living different lives. Our sort of the structure of our lives is different. And so this might resonate differently for other people, but this is intense astrology. It's like, what do you do with it? You might need to make some commitments today. Saturn demands commitments. You might need to say no to something. Saturn loves to say no to the right things, of course. Saturn likes to say yes to the right things, of course. But you may find today, funny enough, I think the moon is still in Scorpio as I record this. This might be bringing a lot of deep emotional stuff. And maybe that's why, in the example that I was sharing earlier about my client, we were talking about deep shadow stuff, the stuff that's in the psyche, the stuff that's in the unconscious, the stuff that is kind of buried trauma. This is all Scorpio's purview. Just kind of checking in with the comments. I see some familiar faces. Thank you all for your feedback and joining me live as we sort of check in with this week. Now, I'm talking about Mars, and I like to kind of zoom out a little bit and make sure that we, where's this all headed? Now, I've been talking about, Mars is going to be in Aries until the beginning of January. January 6th goes into Taurus. But Mars will turn retrograde on September 13th. So when Mars turns retrograde, it's going to do so at 28 degrees of Aries. It's then going to go backwards. It's going to make another square to Saturn I think it's the end of September. And then it's going to, I believe, make another square to Jupiter or to Pluto again. I don't think that it does maybe another square to Jupiter. I'm not sure. But there's something about August, and there's something maybe even about today's square that is going to spill over into September, into the end of September. So do write down notes, put it in your digital calendar, put it in your actual physical analog calendar, like what's going on. I think astrology makes more sense in hindsight because we're able to connect the dots. We're starting to see the narrative of what has been unfolding. So if you put down like, this is what happened this weekend and this is what happened on Monday, August 24th, and then when we get to the next Mars square Saturn, like, oh, I see. So something right now may not be fully resolved. It may need Mars's second pass at the end of September to kind of get more resolution. Side note, Mars retrograde, any retrograde, and every planet turns retrograde except for the sun and moon. So retrogrades are no big deal. They're common occurrences. In fact, the outer planets, Jupiter outward, spend 4 to 5 months of the year retrograde. So again, no big deal. When a planet turns retrograde, it is a time when, on an archetypical level, we have to take a look at that archetype. We have to integrate that archetype. We have to take consciousness of how we've been using that planet. So if Mars is action, will, forward movement, in that very kind of Aries, Martian, leadership, bravery, courage, singularity, individual, turns retrograde, it can't move forward. It can't take action. Well, it can. It just has to do it in a very different way. Your actions, you need to understand how your actions affect other people. You have to understand how maybe you forced things when maybe you shouldn't have forced things. It's something that's been coming up a lot in client work over and over again because we have free will. We try to force situations. In fact, the same client that I was talking about with shadow work, we were kind of looking back over the last couple of years and just how much her life has changed, and even how much her life has changed in a year, because she stopped trying to force everything. And she was being the dam on a lot of things in her life, so that, because in her head, she was like, oh, it can only happen this way. So she was putting all of her might, all of her effort into creating a situation where it could only happen that way. What happened? It was a lot of stress, a lot of heartache, and we were talking in a session. I was like, well, what if you did this instead? And it was like, and she did it. And well, because she has free will, I don't make anybody do anything, and she made some different choices, and then it was like boom, boom, boom. Her life, just like the tectonic plates of her life, started to flow in the way that they wanted to flow, instead of she trying to force them in a certain way. So I use this example because Mars is coming up to a retrograde, and it might be a time when we have to realize maybe where we've been trying to force things, force a career, force a relationship, force a direction that maybe is not working. I don't know. I'm just, maybe this resonates for you, maybe this doesn't. But it's a time when we all have to look at how we use Mars. So if you do not use your Mars, meaning that you have a hard time asserting yourself, or a hard time using your willpower, or taking action, or being brave and courageous, then the retrograde is going to give you an opportunity to make some changes. That's all. Retrograde gives us a chance to pull back in, to reflect, to reassess, to do things differently, get a different vision or approach. And then Mars will turn direct November 13th, a few days for my birthday. And then we can all sort of move forward, hopefully, in a very different way. So this is just to kind of give you some pointers on things that are unfolding in September, things that are unfolding October into November, because Mars has just been making this really intense, what we call in astrology, stellium to 3 planets in Capricorn: Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. And by the end of the year, Jupiter and Saturn will move on to Aquarius. Pluto will still be in Capricorn. Mars is still kind of doing a thing. It makes a final square to Pluto into December, and then it goes out in January. So that's just big picture for the rest of the year. So That's not the only thing that's happening this week, but it's certainly the main focus of what's happening this week. So Venus, speaking of Capricorn stelliums, Venus has been in Cancer. I can't remember the exact date when at the moment, but it's been for a little bit. And I think it was August 4th, thereabouts, maybe the 7th. But Venus now is opposing the planets are starting to oppose the planets in Capricorn. So if you are a Taurus, if you are a Libra, you might be feeling the astrology this week, especially as you go into next week. Venus opposes Jupiter. I believe that's tomorrow. I don't have the date written down. Yes, the 25th, tomorrow. And then later this week on the 30th, it opposes Pluto. And then I believe going into the week next, it will oppose Saturn. So there might be stuff about relationships this week. Anytime Venus gets activated in the astrology, it's about relationships. And I don't mean just romantic relationships, but Venus is the planet that talks about how we socialize, interact, connect with one another. So this might be a time when you're having to socialize, interact, and connect differently, or maybe you're trying to work something out with a partner or a friend, or just the person at your coffee shop. However you do your Venus. Venus is also value. Right now, Venus is in Cancer, so it's very driven by safety and security and being rooted and grounded in the past and nostalgia. So you might need to take a look at relationship patterns that are very rooted in the past. Maybe it's how your parents sort of overlaid their relationship patterns on you, and how do you break free from those patterns. Later, I will also, before I get Venus off my brain, Venus will also trine Neptune this week. So we do have this towards the middle of the week with the Venus opposite Jupiter, which can be a little overindulgent, but a little fun. Venus being in Cancer, we're kind of really feeling deeply nostalgic. Maybe there's a sense of food and camaraderie and like being with our family and close social circle. Venus will trine Neptune, an aspect that can be beautiful and glamorous and sort of the hope and promise of love, especially unconditional love. And Venus trine Neptune can be a little, that sort of, I always think about Disney princess veneer over things. Like, is it real? Is it just, really good lighting? Venus trine Neptune. And then later this week, Mercury will oppose Neptune. So just note this weekend that Mercury opposite Neptune is very classic in astrology for maybe we're not getting the truth. Because Neptune can put that sort of rosy veneer over everything. It's what we want to hear. It sounds great, but is it real? I'm not saying this is going to be like 100% for everything you're hearing, but if something sounds too good to be true as we go into the weekend, just ask yourself, is it really true? Is it a projection? Is it exactly what we want to hear? Or worse, is somebody not being truthful with us? Mercury opposite Neptune, however, is wonderful for people who are creative writers, who work in photography or art or anything where the word has to kind of use that sense of lie or veneer in a positive way. You can use this for spiritual endeavors. You can use this for working on your intuition and meditating. So it's different ways in which you can use this energy. But that's this week in a nutshell. Lots going on. Mars square Saturn, and only happens. Mars has a 2-year cycle, so we're going to have this kind of quarters throughout a 2-year cycle. So we had Mars conjunct Saturn. I believe it was in March. I can't remember. It was like the very end of March. So maybe there's something about today or this week that also ties a thread to, I believe it was March 30th when Mars joined up with Saturn in Capricorn. But that's your look at the astrology of August 24th through 30th, 2020. It's hard to believe that we're coming up to the end of August, which I just don't even know what that means anymore. So join me again for another live look at the astrology, but you can also watch the replay on IGTV. You can watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it on Spotify if you prefer to listen to this as a podcast. You can go to my website, empoweringastrology.com, and get daily, almost daily content, read some horoscopes, book a consultation with me. I know a lot of you are actually clients in the comments and saying hello. And since I can't travel right now, I do love to hear where you are listening to me from, because then I can dream of all the far off places that I can visit one day when I can travel again. So thank you so much for joining me for another live look. We will do this again next week. Until then, be well, stay safe, and till the next time. Bye.